Feel free to grab some Starbucks coffee and my mini muffins, my favorite muffins, right here on Arapahoe in Peoria. Those are donated, the muffins and the bagels. And if you need bathrooms, they are down this hall to the right and then take a left. So my name is Susu Duga. I am one of PIN's co-chairs. You met my other co-chair when you walked in at the front desk, Shari Mendry. And we have a couple of board members here, Carrie, Minyi, and Olga, who opened the door. PIN, Parent Information Network, has been around for about 45 years. And I've been involved with it for about a dozen to 14 or so. We are in desperate need of new board members, people who would like to see PIN keep going. So if you are a person who this is your first time or you've been coming all the time and you think this is valuable, come talk to one of us, and we would love to invite you to one of our board meetings so you can see how we work and how the sausage gets made. Anyway, stand up. All righty. How many of you, is this your first time to come to a PIN presentation? Welcome. Fantastic. Woohoo. How many of you have kids who are little bitty and have like 2 or 3 feelings? You know, under 5. Nobody's got the under 5? Okay. 3 of them under 5.
And I'm here.
And you're here.
There was food on my sweater. Just ignore that.
How many of you had 3 kids in 5 years? Yeah. You know, big feelings, lots of feelings. How many of you have kids in the elementary school years where they're starting to find some words about how to talk about feelings? Elementary school. How about middle school, when they don't know what feeling to name because it changes about every 5 minutes? Middle school, how many? Yeah, those are crazy years. Puberty does a number on your emotions. How about high school? When they've got really big feelings that can result in really big actions. Okay. How about out of the house? All right. Okay, so feelings keep happening, emotions keep happening, commotion and chaos keeps happening, no matter how old you are. All right, thank you. Have a seat. I want to welcome you today. If you need something to write on, hopefully you grabbed a little notepad at the front. If not, go grab one. Everybody is sitting with, if you are comfortable. We'll have some opportunities to talk with other people, so if you're sitting by yourself right now, you might need to join up later on. So we have 2 people today here, Ray Thomas and Brogan Rossi, whose mother spoke for PIN about 15 years ago on eating disorders. I just found out. And so today we're talking about Feelings Found, which is a company that these 2 gals started. And they will tell you their story of how they got into this field and what keeps them going, and how they can help you learn some new skills, how to help our kids, how to help ourselves. How many of us have feelings that you are trying to thwart sometimes as you're looking at that darling person that you're supposed to love? So, hang on, get ready. We're going to have an interactive and interesting talk We'll go to about 11 o'clock. If you've got questions, jot them down, and we'll take them as it seems appropriate. All right, take it away.
Beautiful. Awesome. Hi, y'all. My name is Ray Thomas. I don't like sitting while I talk, so I'm just going to be kind of pacing and flitting around the room. Really, really excited to be here with y'all today. I am the Chief Clinical Officer of Feelings Found, and we should give you our other mic.
I'm Brogan Rossi. I'm the Chief Collaboration Officer of Feelings Found, and I also, as we talked about, am a mom of 5, 3, and 9 months. So lots of feelings happening in that house, so we'll talk about those in a little bit.
Terrifying.
Yeah.
Part of the thing, we're incredibly passionate about feelings and emotions. This is something that, as myself, I'm a therapist as well in private practice, and so obviously I deal with this all the time. And over the past 6 years, we've been working on building tools for emotional exploration, and just continues to hit home how important it is for us to explore our emotions. One of the really big things that we believe is that connection is kind of like the point of everything, right? Connecting with each other, connecting with our kids, connecting with nature. I could keep going. And we can't really do that if we don't express and understand our emotions. So this is something I'm definitely passionate about. And then when it comes to kids, I don't have any kids of my own yet, but I do have 10 nieces and nephews, which I feel like counts as like half a kid. Like we're halfway there.
And I'll jump in as well, too, and we'll dive into this. But I think that what a lot of us are here for as well is to just simplify things. Like, as parents, it's really complex. Like, we get things fed into our system all the time. Like, how do you do this, start this, follow this method, do this sleep training, and like, I know I'm in that phase, but we're just constantly being given information, and it gets really overwhelming. And I think at the end of the day, we can parse it down, and it can be a lot more simple. We all have feelings, our kids have feelings, and we, as adults, a lot of us weren't taught how to talk about them. How many of you, just when someone asks how you're doing, you say, I'm mad? It's like, that doesn't really tell us anything. Like, are you actually feeling abandoned? Are you lonely? Are you overwhelmed? And being able to identify those feelings, both ourselves and our kiddos and our teachers and our mentors and everyone, it can actually make a really big difference in a really simple way. So that's what gets us going. But, yeah.
So just kind of a recap, orient everyone. Some of the things we're going to cover: learn to recognize you and your child's emotions. We're going to talk as well about emotional development amongst kids, so kind of give you some milestones. Pause. Technical difficulties. We're going to talk about some clear and simple strategies that you can use to help your kids learn about their emotions, help you learn about your emotions. Surprisingly, those strategies go across the lifespan, which is fun. And then also talk about some actual tangible tools that you can use too. Before we dive in, because I am like an interactive human, I like talking with people, not just preaching at people. I want to hear some of your biggest struggles with your kids' emotions. And I'll repeat what people shout out so that it gets recorded. Hit it. A lot of tears. And not being able to help them. Yeah, probably feeling a bit hopeless, helpless. Like, I don't know what to do with this. They're losing it. Fair. Yeah. Yes, one extreme to the other. Sometimes a blessing, sometimes a curse. Right? Really nice if we're recovering from a tantrum. But also, wow, that is whiplash. For sure. Absolutely. Yeah. Teenage boy who's a little bit more quiet than he should be. Yeah. Not really wanting to express quite yet. How old exactly? 18. Oh, yeah. That's so fair. That's so fair. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yes. So they know what they should do when they're chill, but then it just flies out the window when they're dysregulated, when something's going on. So fair. Hi, who as an adult feels that way? Hi, me. That's so fair. Emotions, I mean, like Brogan said, we don't get a handbook on emotions, whether that's for parenting or for ourselves. I think even just recently, we're starting to really
Don't mind me.
Cool.
Don't mind me.
engage with and talk about emotions. I think it's like just now becoming more a cultural norm, as you might say. Anything to add to my dear?
Anyone else want to add in? Do we miss anybody that was like, this is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally. Yep. That is so true. We've been raised to tamp them down. Don't feel, don't say anything, don't make waves. But now we've got this shift of no, feel it all. How wild to have that in the same household. That's really, really challenging. Yeah. When you're dysregulated as a parent, yes. Yeah. When you're both dysregulated at the same time. Hi, in individuals who are coupled, right, that's when the worst fights happen, is when both you and your partner are like 10 out of 10, right? Same thing with kids. And it happens because we're all human. We all lose it. It's fine. It's totally okay. Cool. Anything else? Go for it. Great. So let's just talk a little bit first about like why emotions matter. And I want to make sure I'm going to try and keep in my head all the struggles y'all just named. My hope is that through this, we'll be able to talk about what we can do for kind of each of these situations. We are at the very end going to talk through scenarios though, so keep some of those struggles in mind. And if I don't answer a question, we can kind of come back to that. So. Why they matter. They impact a ton of things. I'm a research nerd. If you want the receipts, I have a slide at the end of all the references. It's quite long. I will skip over that for now. But basically, we know that emotional intelligence, right, understanding our emotions, really helps with subjective well-being, so really just perceiving your life as a good life. As well, huge impact on academic success. There's a book by Mark Brackett, would highly recommend if anyone is looking for some reading in your abundant spare time. It's called Permission to Feel. And he talks a lot about this, about how when we are dysregulated, we can't focus our attention. Learning things becomes much more difficult. And so that's where we see this emotional intelligence really impacting academic success, as well as goals and having dreams and ambitions, things like this. Mental health makes sense, right? Better emotional intelligence, we see that as kind of thwarting off some anxiety, some depression. Not always. Sometimes we're just born with that, like me. Just got that anxiety. The other thing we see is resiliency towards stress. So when stress happens, individuals and kids that have higher emotional intelligence do better, recover quicker. Doesn't impact them quite as much, which is really important because stress is always going to happen in our lives, but we want to be able to recover. As well, leading to more positive relationships. This is both with family, parents, caregivers, and with peers. That's a really important part. And the final piece of this, hi, let's make your guys' lives easier. Kids with big emotions are beautiful in so many ways, but if we don't know what to do with them, y'all, it's stressful, right? We just named that. When I'm stressed and my kid's stressed, what the heck are we supposed to do? So by having some of these tools, we'll hopefully decrease your guys' stress a little bit too. Not totally. Parenting's still stressful, but for the most part. Got anything?
Nope.
Cool. Okay, so what the heck is emotional intelligence? Raise of hands here. Who has heard of emotional intelligence before? That's great. So proud. Yay. We're making progress. Cool. So emotional intelligence, usually it's talked about with 4 key elements. As you'll see, we added a nice little bonus on here because I think it's a really important part that's left out often. So awareness, simply being able to recognize our emotions, that we have emotions, that they pop up at different times. And this is also recognizing those within verbal and nonverbal. So when we're talking about recognizing emotions with other individuals, being able to recognize when someone says, I'm sad, but also being able to recognize when somebody's body language is down or frowning, things like that. Clarity, this is more about understanding. So we have to first start off recognizing that we have emotions. And then the next piece is, what is that emotion? And why the heck is it happening? That's what clarity is really all about. That's where a lot of that labeling is going to come into. And then regulation or communication is our next one. This is then expressing, right? So we know what we're feeling. Now, how do we get that out and express it to the people around us to get our needs met? And this is within cultural norms. That's a really, really important piece of this. There is no right or wrong way to express emotions. I'm going to say it again. There is no right or wrong way to express emotions. What it is all dependent on is what is culturally appropriate, and that is really important for us to think about as we recognize that everyone's family culture is a little bit different. Then we come to regulation. Regulation, calming ourselves. If we're dysregulated, we're able to bring that down. In the case where we are, or our child is so regulated, everything goes out the window, having tools and skills to come back down, bring that heart rate down, bring that breathing down, and be able to recognize and re-engage with kind of more of that logic mind of what to do. And then finally, we have our bonus that I've added, and the bonus is resolution. What do we do after we've calmed down? What do we do after we've named the emotion? This is really going to be about goal-directed behaviors that get needs met, that we're learning from these past emotional experiences, that we're communicating and having productive, effective conversations around emotions after they happen. Thoughts on emotional intelligence? Comments, questions, concerns? Beautiful. Love it. You got anything? Good. Cool. Okay, so then we come to how the heck do kids actually learn about emotions? Okay, another show of hands. Who here has heard of interoceptive awareness? Cool. Okay, awesome. So this is really a newer concept. Rephrase that. Newer concept in a more broader population, I will say. Interoceptive awareness is a term and an idea about the internal sensory feedback that our brain receives from our body, right? So very sensory. So what is, how heavy is this? What is my heart rate feeling right now? Things like this. It was talked about a lot more in terms of individuals and kids on the autism spectrum. Because we know that they have a really hard time with interoceptive awareness, and sometimes there's a lot of coaching that has to happen. Coaching about hunger and fullness cues, coaching about, well, I'm sure everyone's gone through this, potty training, when to know that you need to use the restroom. But what they're finding more is that this is actually really important for being able to recognize emotions, because our emotions come through in physical body sensations. They do not just exist up in our brain, which is important. So, two basic kinds of interoceptive awareness. That first is the body-based, like I said, heart rate, being able to tell if you feel sick or not, headaches, but also like textures or feeling hot. Like I'm sweating right now, a lot. That is interoceptive awareness. And then on the other side of that, emotion-based sensation. So if you think about when maybe you feel angry, What are some sensations y'all feel when you feel angry? You can just shout out. Hot. Yeah, I get the same. Tired. Nice. Fast heart rate. Like your body's going to explode. Yeah, that like zzz kind of feeling. Seeing black. Yeah. Vision changes. Yep, for sure. That like kind of tunnel vision-y. These are all really good examples of interoceptive awareness. And we're going to talk about kind of down the road how we teach our kids about it. But this is just the how of how they learn.
One thing I was just going to add to interoceptive awareness as well, something to kind of put a pin in and think about, there we go, nice, and think about later is also that we have been taught, cultured, whatever word you want to use, to not necessarily listen to our interoceptive awareness. So that's something really important to think about us as adults when we are managing our own regulation and our kiddos, trying to teach them to be aware of their body sensations when a lot of society has told us over years and years and years and years to not. Right? Even just the sense of if you're working and there's not enough time to, I don't know about you, but have a lunch break, take a bathroom break. Those are moments in which we've been taught to just kind of stifle down any body awareness. And it's just something to remember as we move through this, that when you are with your child, you also have to relearn this yourself. So to give yourself grace as well. So we'll get back to that.
Beautiful. Question. The second piece of this, we know that kids learn the most about emotions from us, from watching us, from interacting with us. There's also some really interesting and cool research around emotional intelligence and that impacting how we engage with our kids. So even what the relationship even looks like. And, I say this, I know that we all struggle with emotion in some way, shape, or form. I think we can be in that safe space and kind of say that now. That is not to mean that because you don't know what's happening emotionally, that you are going to ruin your child, that it's going to impact them really negatively. No. Not that space. Not that space. No shade, no shame. None of that happening here, right? Because at the end of the day, they're going to be their own temperament. They're going to be their own child. Some of us are born with anxiety. Hi, me. Some of us are just born with depression, and no amount of our parents' emotional intelligence, how they interact with us, would change that. So yes, we have an impact on our kids in terms of how we engage with our own emotions, but not so much that it's all within our control. And I think that's a really important thing to point out. Cool. What other things have you guys seen influence your kids' emotions? Let's just start there. What do you see impacting your kids' emotions? Sleep, hunger, yeah, hangry. I'm that way. Say more about electronics. Yeah, too much TV, too many video games. Sugar. Not getting what they want, hearing no. Oh, yeah. Other friends' emotions, yes. That huge, right? The environment and the people that they are around. Ooh, and we're going to talk about that with development too. Bullies, yeah, that's a really big one. Yeah, experiencing bullying. Ooh, or at home, yeah, absolutely. Unclear expectations. Y'all know Brene Brown? Anyone? Yeah. Clear is kind. Unclear is unkind. That's her saying. It's awesome. Stress. Yeah, absolutely. Exercise. Yeah, exercise. Recess, right? Okay, from all the things you heard. Oh, wait, pause. Yeah, probably feeling alone. Yeah, not knowing what to do, not knowing who to talk to. Okay, of all the things that were just named, who all has had one of those impact their own emotions? Here's my biggest takeaway, this whole thing. Our emotional experiences and what we need is not all that different from what our kids need. It's really not, when you really, really break it down. And I think that's important. So when we engage with our kids around their emotions, we're like, oh, I don't know what to do. This is like an alien. This is a whole new world. Take a deep breath. It's not. You were there once. You're here now, and you have emotions just like you did when you were a kid. So I just want to keep that in mind. Yeah? Beautiful. Okay, this next part's going to be a little hefty, but I do think it's really important to go over emotional development stages. And the big piece of this is knowing what we can actually expect from our kids at a certain age. What are they actually capable of? I'll go through examples, but anywho, it's going to be a lot of information. I would say things to pay attention to. There's little check boxes on the side. Now, the other thing, age, emotional intelligence, basically emotional intelligence is always going to increase with age, almost always. So just keep that in mind that we're kind of constantly getting better with our emotions the older we get. And then these age ranges, very fluid. Part of this was like, this is a really easy way to break things up, but your child's going to be really different. Everyone is going to be really different with these. And so that's important. When I say 1 to 3, it might be 1 to 4, 1 to 5, who knows? So just keep that in mind. Okay, so we're going to start off with this 1 to 3 stage. Awareness, we're basic emotions at this stage. We know we're upset. We know that we're hungry, usually, even though we can't name that. We know that we're tired. How we're expressing that is those younger ages, we're crying. Those older ages, we are having tantrums. And like tantrums to the best of them. Just world-class performances at this stage. In these kind of the older phase of this, we're able to do some basic emotional labeling. Again, that I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm upset. But anything beyond that, getting any more kind of clarity or precise in emotional labeling, we're not there yet. So we can't expect that from our toddlers, which is okay. Communication, they're communicating through tantrums. It's just part of it. We got to embrace the tantrum. We got to learn how to deal with the tantrum, which we'll get into. And then for regulation tools, this is all going to be external. External meaning things like a blanket, a stuffed animal, music, sometimes temperature changes, right? So like a heating pad or an ice pack even, different textures. They are using external things in the world to regulate their own emotions, as well as they're using you to regulate. So think of tantrum. I'm sure you're going to have some awesome examples.
Probably just this morning.
Probably. But right, kiddos tantruming, and you sit down with them on the floor, you're holding them, taking deep breaths with them. That's a good example of co-regulating. Any other examples you've got, Brogan?
I mean, I could go on forever, but I'll leave it limited because I know most people have older kiddos in this classroom, what am I saying? This room. But I think the most important thing to remember about this age range is that a lot of it is just regulating and just coming together in that moment. So whether it's a hug, whether it's breathing yourself, and sometimes you have to step out of the room because, I had a 30-minute tantrum because the banana broke in half, and I don't know. All of you as parents probably hate bananas as toddlers because they always end up in a problem. And I think that for whatever reason, just for me to take a space away, breathe, come back and offer a hug, that's really important here and that it's really that simple. So yeah.
Cool. So again, the thing to really focus in here, this is a lot of great information. This is what I want you to take away. We can name basic emotions. We cannot think before we react. And we cannot regulate independently. So we can't expect our kids to do that at this stage. Moving on, we're getting closer to where everyone's kiddos are at. Some elementary school though, so we're hitting it. Okay, so 4 to 6, again, that's fluid. The first part of that, awareness. Hi, we're getting some more awareness of other emotions. So not just upset, hungry, tired. Maybe lonely is even coming in. I've definitely heard that. Sad, confused, things like this. We're also beginning to be able to label more emotions and get more complex with that. Now, they have to have the vocabulary to do that. We'll talk about that with strategies later on how to give them vocabulary, but it is something they are able to do at this stage. Communication, probably going to still see tantrums at this stage, right? I mean, hi, I have tantrums and I'm 30. We all do at some point, right? But that's going to happen hopefully a lot less, especially if they have the tools to express, to ask for what they need, and have some regulation tools in their back pocket as well. We see regulation happening with distraction here. Hi, I'm sure a lot of us use distraction, maybe even did it today, this morning. Hi, these things, massive distraction. That's good or bad. Using our phones for distraction is a regulation skill. Again, good or bad. And then we're still looking for parents for guidance on skills. So kid of this age might not be able to say, I'm upset, I need to go take some deep breaths. They might come to you as parents, say, I'm upset, and then you say, hey, why don't we try this skill together? So still needing to kind of be hands-on in that regulation. And then at this point, with our resolution, we can do some really basic problem solving. Banana example, if we fast forward a couple years. Bananas cut in, splits in half. So wild. Kids are wild. Kids are wild. Being able to say, okay, I hear you, right? We validate the emotions, and then we get to say, what do you think we should do about the banana being cut in half, right? And they can participate a little bit. You're going to have to offer some solutions there, but they can start to engage in it. Anything to add?
I think something that's really important here too is curiosity. So the ability to engage with basic problem solving, being curious on what level of problem solving they are willing to do, right? So I think as parents, a lot of times we have this need to just fill in the blank. Oh, the banana cut in half, here's the problem solving, let's put it back together, you're good to go. And that's a really simple example, but as emotions get more complex, we often see our kiddo crying and we're like, oh, you must be angry. I'm really angry right now too, right? A lot of times we put our emotional state on our kiddo to problem solve because it's quicker. It's really hard to wait to get to that end solution. So I think being curious, asking a lot of questions and being patient, which depending on the time of day is a lot easier said than done. If it's bedtime, that your patience might be worn thin, but just something to keep in mind when working through some of these steps.
Beautiful. So again, our takeaways, yes, we can label emotions. That's awesome. We love that. We can regulate with some support from the people around us. We cannot do it independently yet. We cannot be asking our kid, go in the other room and regulate yourself. They're not going to know what to do. And that's okay. That's okay. They're just not there yet. Any questions so far, now that we've hit kind of ages where kiddos are at? Yeah. 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 Yep. The regression. I don't like that word. It's a little, but anyhow, a little more negative than I want it to be. But yeah, absolutely. When you have a child that maybe is really highly emotionally intelligent, is able to do some of things, is able to independently regulate, but then that backslides, that's hard for you, right? Because you're like, oh man, I made it. They can now regulate independently. I can tell them to go take a chill pill, and we can carry on, and then they're not able to do that anymore. And that's where managing our own patience, our own emotions is so important. And that's so frustrating. Totally. Anything to add?
Nope.
Cool. All right, let's carry on. All right, 7 to 9. Raise a hands who's in this stage. Okay, cool. Yeah, this is helpful just as we keep moving on here. Cool stage, interesting stage. We can take perspectives. So we're thinking more not just, I think the perfect example is the TV, right? Kid before this will stand in front of the TV and not understand that they can't see through you, right? And then here, if they're, tuned in, they can kind of recognize that, oh, I'm in the way. This person has a different perspective than me, which is cool. Cool things about it, some not cool things about it. But this is also where we see some increased awareness of others' emotions, and where we really start to see a bigger impact of how others' emotions then impact their own. So some of the examples with bullying, with the environment that they're in, that's definitely where we see this come more and more into play. Again, not that it's not there before, but it's happening more here. So again, some of that clarity playing into the same thing, able to understand that they can have one emotional experience and maybe their friend can have a different emotional experience. They're not assuming that their own emotions are everybody's emotions. That's an important part of this. Communication. This is huge. If we're here, then there is the ability, doesn't mean we're doing it, to verbalize we are angry before we lose it. We are able to say, hey, I'm not okay, before we go into the tantrum, before we go into the blow up. Now, there's a lot of other things that have to happen there, right? We got to have awareness. We got to be able to name it, all of that, but the ability is there. And that's important to note. This is where we start to have some independence and regulation, where, hopefully if we're in this stage, or if we backslid, which happens, very normal, we're able to say, hey, these 3 coping skills, can you please go use one of them? And they, again, are able to do that. And then more problem solving in this area too. Brogan, things to add? Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yep, absolutely. Yeah. So absolutely asking the question of, is it teachable to have your child verbalize before they really blow up? And I use blow up kindly. It's just a quick way to say dysregulate. Yeah, absolutely teachable. I think the things that we have to keep in mind are the awareness and clarity. If they have awareness that their emotions are rising, and the clarity of what emotion is rising. So those are going to be pieces when we get to more of the strategies. I'd say probably focus on that awareness and clarity, because my guess is those are becoming challenging. And neurodivergent too, that awareness can be really, really hard of recognizing, oh, I'm hungry, I didn't sleep well last night, I'm already here, and then the thing happens, and I'm up here. Does that help? Cool. Beautiful. Other questions, comments, concerns? Yeah. Yeah. Deny. Yes, absolutely. And again, when we get to that strategy part, I think the thing to maybe focus on here is going to be more on those communication strategies, but also kind of tracking to see what, why are we trying so hard not to be angry? What does angry mean? And if there's any like, oh, I can't be angry, angry isn't accepted, angry is scary, all kinds of things. I mean, I think even in media, we see anger is depicted as really scary, which is really gonna, what's the word? Disinhibit? That's not a word. Is that a word? Whatever. Expressing anger because it's depicted as really scary. So a couple things to think about there. And when we get to strategies, again, let's come back around. I'm gonna do my best to remember. I'm not always great. Cool. So our takeaways here, we are able to take perspective. We have the ability, doesn't mean we're doing it, to verbalize before we lose it. The thing we're not able to do here is recognize the longer-term impacts of our emotions or longer-term impacts of our behaviors. We're very, very short-sighted, which is okay. It's totally developmentally normal. But again, trying to use that as a way to get them to regulate. Hey, if you act this way, this weekend, we're not going to be able to do X. Might not be the best strategy. It might work. Kind of depends on your kiddo. But that might be a little too far ahead. Cool. 10 to 12. Who's here? Cool. Hi, welcome. Okay. So part of this, I heard some individuals talking about the mood swings. This is here. Puberty is coming. It's terrifying. There are hormones everywhere. Our emotions are everywhere. So this is definitely a place where you might end up seeing that regression, backslide, whatever we want to call it, in the most compassionate way of our skills, because they are being flooded with 1,000,002 other things. So frustration, lack of patience in this area from y'all, so normal. But are able to recognize kind of general moods. So can wake up and generally say, I'm in a bad mood today. That's huge. We can recognize a baseline for the day. We can start to understand the multiple different causes of emotions. I didn't sleep well last night. I'm hungry. Yesterday didn't go the way I planned. Even things like that, we can start to recognize that a little bit more here. Start to be able to think more abstractly. I'm sure y'all have heard that a lot, right? That abstract thinking milestone. It's around this age. Regulation, we start to use internal strategies here. Internal strategies are things like reframing your thoughts. So, example of a reframe is, there's like 1,000,002 examples I have. I'm really mad at my boss because they asked me to do this project. Reframe. I know that my boss is really stressed out right now and is asking for my help. That is an example of an internal strategy. It's all happening within here. Acceptance as well. I've been told no. It is what it is. That's a hard one for any age. And then resolution, we're able to think about those kind of, I'm calling them midterm goals. So again, long-term impacts, years in the future, no, we're not there at all. Weekend example, yes, that is going to be quite a bit more impactful at this stage. What do you got?
Any questions? Because I'm going to keep track of all of these, and we'll kind of talk about them at the end, too. So if anyone wants to chime in, yeah, let me know. Those are helpful. I also just wanted to ask, Ray at one point had said, you're staring at this alien, for lack of a better word sometimes, right? And thinking, like, what is happening? Where is this coming from? Something really important here is to remember the biology. I don't know about you, but sometimes when my kids are having tantrums, I can tell myself, like, this is how their neurons are firing. They do not fire the same, and it helps me, right? So how many of you in your postpartum phase felt as though you were really emotionally stable? Probably not many of us. I mean, the things that I lost it over, I look back and I'm like, I am not who I was, right? So I think it's really important to remember what is going on in our kiddos' bodies, hormonal fluctuations that they have never processed before. It feels like something is taking over. And so sometimes for me, that helps when we are in this resolution phase to come back as well to the biology. So just naming that as well can really help us to focus on the resolutions and the regulation too.
Beautiful. Okay, so our takeaways here. We have the ability to independently regulate. We have the ability to reframe our thoughts, to rethink things. We're not going to have a consistent mood. Guys, we're going to be all over the place. It's just part of the game. Moving right along. We're really close, guys. We're really close. I know it's a ton of info.
Oh, right here. Sorry, we got a hand.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
In the strategy section, as we start talking about it, what we talk about is that we can help external perception because I find that a lot of people are expecting him to have
That is a
page, but he's 9, so he's on the cusp, but he's really struggling with that because people have different expectations.
That is, so for those that maybe didn't hear, but also for the recording, hoping to cover in the strategies section how we can manage external perceptions for a kid that maybe looks much older than they are, and people expecting that they act much older than they are. That is a good one, and I have a friend that struggles with this immensely. Kid definitely looks like a 7-year-old, and he's 4. So yeah, thank you. You got it.
Thank you.
Yeah. Yep. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Let's definitely dive into this because I think this is going to come into a lot of the communication standpoint, and especially maybe for older kids. It sounds like for you have a little bit older kids, them being able to communicate where they maybe struggle and advocate for themselves, which is hard. We don't even do it as adults. Thank you. Really, really good questions, y'all. Love it. 13 to 15, who's there? Yep. Cool. Great. Terrifying high school. Wonderful. We have the ability to consistently recognize emotions here. Doesn't mean we're always doing it, right? But we have the ability to. Cognitively, if we're on kind of normal, hate that word, track, we have the ability to consistently recognize those emotions. Can start to independently recognize what some of the causes of those emotions might be. So they're able to kind of sit down on their own and be like, man, yesterday, like Jimmy said this thing to me and it is still sticking with me, rather than needing some support and needing to talk it through with you. Although it's still helpful if they talk it through. At this point, we're going to increase communication and support from peers. They're going to pull away from y'all. Super normal. Still painful, still weird, still scary, but super normal. And leaning into that, knowing that it's okay that they're not getting all of their support from you. That's actually something we do not want as they get older, is an increased reliance on you. We want some of that decreased reliance. Regulation, we're refining our coping skills here. One thing we do find, though, is that regulation is harder in social settings at this point. So regulation amongst friends, someone said that earlier or alluded to this. I forget who and where and what. But in these social settings, really going to struggle to regulate. This is where we see like when friends get together and things get crazy loud or they do wild things and you're like, you never act this way. What is happening? Very, very normal and important to recognize. Part of the biology piece of that is, again, increasing the independence. They're trying to find their own social group outside of family. And then, where did I leave off? Oh, and then resolution. We can fully think in abstracts and hypotheticals. So like using metaphors with kids this age is awesome. They get it now, which is really, really cool. So our takeaways here, we can rely on our regulation skills, or we have the ability to. We're going to increase using our peers for support. We are going to do poorly regulating with our friends, though, which is a catch-22. Questions, comments about this phase? Yeah, absolutely. So a really beautiful, as a therapist, I use metaphors literally all the time. Using metaphors to describe, love the metaphor, Sisyphus, like constantly pushing the boulder up the hill, right? Kind of to symbolize working towards something that actually has no end. Giving an example like that in a phase before this is probably not going to land. They're not totally going to get what we're trying to get at. They might not connect with it. But then at this stage, we're going to start being able to get that. Maybe Sisyphus is a little older. I'm a philosophy nerd. Brogan, do you have any examples?
I mean, I think a lot of times, too, it's coming back to, like, okay, like, before this, if you say, well, trees grow this way, and, we talk about that all the time, just branches grow, flowers grow, all of these metaphors, right, just in the outside world. Again, kiddos might not understand that at a younger age. So I think it's a lot of symbolism within the metaphors as well, that now is a better age to talk about that. So bringing some outside world into those conversations, and it can be helpful.
Yeah. Good call out. Sweet. All right, last one, guys. Last one. Well, for this stage, right? Then they become adults, and then, who knows? Okay, 16 to 18, raise of hands. Okay. We're on the up and up. We hopefully at this point can rely on regulation. We can have skillful conversations about our emotions at this point. Again, we're able to. That doesn't mean it's actually happening, because the thing that has to be happening all along is that they're increasing their awareness, their clarity, the communication. They're working on this their whole lives. And I think that's just now starting to be integrated for our kids. Again, no shade to y'all. We're all doing the best we can. And then as well, we're solidifying independence here. This stage is, we absolutely want to be there for them. We want to support them. But really, they should feel pretty good about being able to handle their emotions solo, or being able to ask for the help when they need it and know when they need it. And I'm going to keep this one short. Questions, comments, concerns? Nice. Okay. How's everyone feeling? Beautiful. That was a lot. Okay, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to get up, take a stretch break, grab coffee, grab food, etc. And then we're going to do a little bit of assessment to see where y'all are at. So y'all can really assess, where am I at with my emotions? Where are my kids at? So we'll go ahead and pass those out while everyone gets drinks and whatnot. Cool.
Oh my gosh, thank you. I know, I'm like, I should have done this. One of each. Perfect.
I have a very quick question.
Yeah, everyone's doing it, right? But it doesn't mean, yeah. Okay, so everyone gets one child per parent. Where are you from, by the way? You're like Shane. So that's really okay.
Fair.
And so like, don't think this easy, but until you've been here for a while. Yeah, exactly.
Shane, and actually, I'm a part of the LGBT community, and it's really more common in that community. It's just started to be more
Hearing songs.
Yeah,
but
yeah,
it's like,
yeah. Like a diss or another word, put down or almost like a passive aggressive, right? Some like passive aggressive things like that. Yeah. Thank you for calling that out. I think that is so fair.
You said it a couple times.
Yeah.
And I know there's, like my daughter can come home and say all this
I know,
stuff.
and you're like, what is that?
And then so I've got a almost 13-year-old and a 20-year-old.
Yep.
And so sometimes it's like, what the hell are you doing? What are you
You're like, I
guys
got like
saying?
a call. What is
it's like,
happening?
okay, I'm not following all this.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I just
Absolutely.
figured
I
I'd ask.
appreciate you asking. Thank you so much. I'm actually notorious for like using acronyms and things like that and then not remembering to explain myself. Yeah.
I mean, the big thing when I was in high school, when I was in high school, junior high,
Yeah.
it was funny because I told my daughter, like when we started talking about skipping toilet and
Yeah.
all this stuff, everybody in my school is yogurt. And it was like, what did it mean? It meant nothing. And it was like, but everybody ran
But
around
everyone
saying it
yeah.
all the time. And it was just like, and then, I know when my son was in middle school, I'd ask him something and it's like, purple.
Totally. No idea.
I don't get it, so figured I'd ask.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Okay. Okay. Is this one working? I think it is. All right, y'all. Jesus. Can we get a show of hands of who did not get 2 little assessments? You should have 2 pieces of paper in front of you. There. Cool. All right. All good. Sweet. Yes, looks like a couple. Ah, so sorry. Man, I printed it. Y'all showed up today. Short by 3, 4, maybe do 5 just to be safe. Beautiful. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. So what you have in front of you are 2 assessments. Now, disclaimer about these. These were assessments that I created based on other longer, lengthier assessments. I didn't want to give y'all a 30-question assessment. Nobody wants to spend their time doing that. So educational purposes only. There are some really cool research peer-reviewed assessments out there and questionnaires online. If you want those, just let me know and I can email them to you. But I want you to take a second. There is one for yourself as a parent, and there is one to assess your child. Everything's a kind of agree to disagree, so 1 to 5. Then you will add up your scores in each category, and we'll kind of go from there. So take the next 5, 10-ish to work through that for yourself. No wrong answers. You know what? Take your pick. Take your pick. You could do all kids. You could do, if you wanted, or you could even do it side by side, doing initial, and then kind of score it there and kind of see where everyone's at.
We have 3 pens left, 10 left.
Yeah, I was going to say, well, it's going to have to our email because I think it's so easy to pivot that and we can send it over. Yeah, so all those things, I try to make kids all know, but they never say it. So is called awareness or not? Yeah, it's really, I think up to this question because there is a difference between awareness and then absolutely. Yeah. All right, give it another minute or so. Does that sound okay? Meh, That's okay. I want to make sure I leave time so we can get through questions. So if you're not totally done, totally cool. I'll give it another minute. Okay, so if you're still working, all good. Ignore me. Tune me out. It can be easy to do at times. So, but for those of you that have gone through, so again, this is educational purposes only, but these are some questions that can be really helpful to ask yourself to get an idea of how am I doing with emotional intelligence? And then more specifically, what areas am I struggling with? Because remember, our own emotional intelligence is a huge impact. It's not everything, but it's a huge impact. Yes, my dear. No. No, definitely wouldn't. I didn't go through and do it per age. Really good suggestion, though. I'm on it for next time. Thank you. But yeah, generally made it really, really general, right? Really more of a conversation piece. So scores for each category, 15 to 20 is we're doing really good. Anything outside of that doesn't mean we're doing bad. We just need a little extra support. And maybe our kids aren't even there yet, and that's okay. That's totally okay. I think the other thing to note, especially around communication piece, is that when you're assessing your child, I do work with some individuals that are nonverbal. That does not mean they cannot communicate their emotions. So communication can also happen through writing, through using cards to communicate, things like that. So I just wanted to name that too. I forgot to do it before. So as you look through this, okay, 2 seconds. Hey, there it is. You're going to identify an area that is an opportunity for growth. Here's the thing. You don't get to pick all of them. No overachievers. No, thank you. We got lives still at the end of the day. Y'all got to go work. You got to, pick up your kids, do, X, Y, Z, whatever. If you try and tackle all of these, you're going to feel overwhelmed. You're going to burn out, and we're not actually going to be making any change. So when you think about this for yourself and for your kids, think about just one area that you want to focus on and one simple thing that you can do to impact some change. And by change, I'm talking 1% change. That's it. 1%. Because 1% is better than no percent, right? We just want to turn the notch a little bit on increasing emotional intelligence. So, just like a quick shout out, what are some areas we want to focus on? A lot of communication. Wow, a lot. Regulation, a lot of regulation. Yep. Yeah. Yep. Cool. Yeah. Totally. Totally.
That was one observation, and then I found that myself,
Ooh, interesting. Okay, so just to reiterate, found kids were really off, and they were kind of, I don't have a better word right now, two ends of the scale, and then Jen fell in the middle. Really interesting. Oh man, I want to dive into that and get nerdy, but we don't have time. Okay, it's fine. Everything's fine. Awesome. Okay. What?
Communication and regulation, those are the two big ones.
Yep, awesome. Okay, we're going to dive into strategies. I want to work in scenarios here, and I also want to be conscious of time. So if you have a question about that particular strategy area, stop me. Like, wave hands, whatever you got to do to get my attention. I'm going to move through these since I didn't hear a ton of people talk about awareness. So again, reminding yourself for awareness, this is where we're recognizing the presence of our own emotions. The other thing too that I actually spaced mentioning at the top, we're focusing on personal emotional intelligence today, not necessarily emotional intelligence in social settings, our own emotions today. We can come back and talk about the other one, just saying. Okay, so first best thing we can do, share your own experience. This is fun. You get to narrate your life. You ever wanted to be in a movie where your life gets narrated? She's walking along the street, whatever. You get to do this here. You get to say, I'm feeling hungry because my tummy is grumbling. I'm going to grab some food. Naming that is teaching your kid that awareness, tuning in. Some other strategies, prompted noticing. So this is where we're going to ask our kids to start noticing things. Starting out with the 5 senses is really helpful. Those are usually more accessible to us. What does that taste like? Do you feel hot or cold? What does the texture of this water bottle feel like? Things like this. And then next, we want to try and explore the tired, the hungry. Again, a lot of us are out of the potty training stage, but this would be part of it too. Oh man, I'm wondering if, it seems like you might be tired. What are you feeling in your body? What are you noticing right now? How do your limbs feel? And making it limb specific can be helpful. There's also some really cool things online that are basically just like a list of body sensations that you can start to teach some sensation vocabulary. And then we're going to explore happy, upset, sad. What does it feel like in your body to be happy? What does it feel like in your body to be upset? Things like this. Body scans, really helpful. I like to prompt this with younger kids is like, let's say hello to your feet today. How are your feet doing today? Are they hot? Again, kind of going through those sensations and emotions. And then the last part of this, leave space for mindful moments. This goes for adults especially, right? Especially with like audiobooks, podcasts, things like that. How often are we actually in silence anymore? Silence is when we can tune into ourselves. So make sure that you are leaving space for silence with your kids, even if it's a minute. A minute works, totally works. Space for silence so they can tune in. There's a really cool ebook that I found that talks through a lot of sensations. If anyone wants access to it or wants me to send the link, I can. So just hit me up after. Oh, cool. Perfect. Beautiful. I'll also send y'all the, yep, thank you. Cool. Okay. Any particular scenarios that we want to talk about with awareness? Okay, I'm going to move right along. Next, we're on to clarity. This is where we're understanding and we're labeling our emotions. We want to introduce new vocabulary. Brogan, do you want to Yeah. So this is where we've actually created something to help with naming new vocabulary. And stay tuned. So I will say our tool is definitely for reading age, some older individuals. Just like a side plug, we're going to come out with a kids wheel soon. So just like hang out, stick around with us very soon, hopefully next year. Anywho, so feel free to open them up and we'll talk about kind of how clarity can work in this setting with a tool like this. So things like feelings wheels, you may have seen a 2D version of a feelings wheel. These can be really helpful to start teaching some new vocabulary and make it like a word of the day situation. Annoyed. Today we're going to talk about annoyed. What does annoyed mean? Have you heard that word before? Here's what annoyed means to me, right? So we're really just like you would teach a vocab lesson. One of the ways to do this as well, and as you kind of grab your wheels, is start out with the basic and get more specific over time. So you'll notice that each pedal is a kind of basic emotions. We have happy, uneasy, anxious, things like this. You can start out there asking your kids, okay, what's our larger emotion we're feeling? What's kind of a more broad category? And then get more specific. So as you move in, that next row are more specific versions of happy, per se. And then we go again, an offshoot of a more specific emotion like joyful. There's going to be 2 more specific options. So thinking of it this way to really engage in clarity is try and get more specific with every question you ask about that emotion.
I want to give an example of this because I think that helps me, at least as a parent. I have a 5-year-old who is a very emotionally intelligent 5-year-old. I try my best. But this wheel is tough. Obviously, she can't read the words, but we still sit down and do it. And something I want to talk about with this clarity, a lot of clarity that we gain with our kiddos is just by actually sitting down and doing something tangible. So there's so many apps out there. There's a lot of technology, and our brains tend to turn off when we're looking at that in a different way. So I sit down with her. So she was having really big emotions one day and just could not name it. She was screaming and crying. And so I sat down with her, we grabbed the wheel. And although she can't read, I just went through it exactly as Ray said and said, we tried to land on, okay, what are you feeling? We worked through this a little bit and we got to the fact that she was feeling lonely because her dad was out of town. We started with mad. So that didn't really get me anywhere as mom on how do I come up with a conversation, or how do we land on something that might make you, daughter, feel better or regulate. Mad didn't get me anywhere. So this is a way that you can sit down with your kiddo and say, like, let's just pick one. Let's work through it. Let's find the vocabulary. And that vocabulary, that emotional labeling, actually makes the conversation come up with a solution as opposed to feeling like you're mad. You move on. So just an example of how I use it even with young kiddos and how helpful it can be.
Cool. Some other things here, highlight examples in books. There's some really awesome books out there that talk about emotions. In movies, TV that you might be watching with your kiddo, Bluey. Bluey is that's what everyone's into, right? They do a really good job of talking about emotions. And then also discuss some age-appropriate reasons, again, age-appropriate, right, of why you might be feeling the way you are. Brogan, I'm going to share your example of this. Of not long ago, your husband was out of town. You had all 3 kids. Everyone was losing it. And Brogan told me this the next day that she broke down. I think you screamed and
Definitely cried.
Started crying. And then you explained to them, you said, I'm really sorry that I acted that way. I'm feeling really overwhelmed because, when I'm here alone, it's really hard to be alone with all you 3 kids, right? That's totally okay to express some of those emotions about why you're feeling the way you are. I didn't sleep well last night, kiddo. I'm really struggling today. This is all really helpful. Get curious. So we want to try and not say you are feeling frustrated because we don't actually know that because we're not in our heads, right? And so starting to say things like, I'm wondering if you're feeling frustrated right now. I'm wondering if you're feeling sad, and having it be a conversation. And then as well, draw it out, use whiteboard. Visuals are huge, 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 huge. Drawing a picture of a bed and an X through it because we didn't sleep well last night, and that's contributing, drawing an arrow to sad, right? Or whatever it might be. Yeah. Yeah. They're cool. Mm-hmm. Yep. Right. Yeah, absolutely. So the little spot of emotions is one of them. And then a newer one is this blob tree. They're PDFs online, and they just are different blob stick figures that depict different emotions. They're really fun. Yeah. Great. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Mm-hmm. Yep. Yes. Yes. So if you have a kid that internalizes things, being cautious, and how do we navigate sharing our own emotional experience. So I think with this, first is knowing your kid. Knowing your kid. If your kid is extra sensitive, we don't want to share nothing, but maybe we do pull back a little bit, right? Because we definitely don't want to make it put any, I don't like that word, whatever, burden, so to say, on our kid. With our emotions. And this is also a really important skill, even as adults, that we are able to hear another person's emotions and not internalize it. So we need to start teaching that skill to our kids as well. One way we do this is talking about it. Hey, when I say am having an emotion, it's about me. It's not about you. This is my experience. I am responsible for my own experience. Really important. The other thing is follow it up with, here's what I need from you. I'm really tired today, sweetheart. I'm really struggling. What would be really helpful from you today is if you could get your shoes on by yourself this morning. That would be awesome, right? That is going to take some of that internalizing and I don't know what to do now to help mom or dad or, whatever. And so really getting specific about what you need from them. Yeah.
I was going to add to that kids are very literal, right? And so this actionable item can really help to pull them to attach something, a need, to an actual action. And I think that is a very simple way to pull them out of this kind of emotional turbulence of, oh my gosh, mom's upset, it's all my fault, shame, whatever it is, fear, and label it and keep them on that path. Of just very directed action. So, thinking about that literal space, a need is very literal, and it's helpful. Yeah.
Cool. Helpful? Good. Okay, I'm going to carry on. Get to the good stuff. Regulation. Now, I put regulation before communication for a reason, because we usually cannot communicate if we are dysregulated. Tantrums, and then trying to ask for how they feel, you're just going to get screams. So, first thing, as always, narrate you using your own regulation skills. Ooh, I'm feeling a lot right now, sweetheart. I'm going to step in the other room and take a deep breath. I'll be back in 2 minutes. Okay? Narrate that for them. Hey, man, I'm feeling really anxious today. I'm going to go for a walk because I know that helps me. Do you want to come with? Things like that, right? Second piece of this, if your kid is dysregulated, you got to get right with you first. Take a deep breath. They'll be okay. We got to take a deep breath. We got to focus on us, and we got to get grounded. beautiful thing, all these grounding skills I have up here work really well as adults. I use all of them. So again, not just good for our kids, also good for us. Whether that's taking a deep breath, whether that's screaming into a pillow for 2 seconds. Hi, yeah, definitely done that. Also just saw a product recently that is a travel size scream pillow. I'm not even kidding, and I'm just mad that I didn't think of that. So Google it. Grab an ice pack. Ice packs are huge for regulating that change in temperature, especially on our major arteries. So chest, back of the neck, or our wrists. A lot of scientific evidence that it decreases or calms our nervous system very, very quickly. Ice packs are your greatest friends. They also make, if you're out and about, they do make disposable ice packs that you can kind of, they like pop, and then they start to get cold on their own. So you don't have to have access to like a freezer all the time. Pro tip right there. One of the ones here with regulating that I wanted to hit on too is that tangible is really important. I don't know how to, will you hold this? I don't know how to do this without. So this hand tracing with breathing can be really helpful because, yes, we can talk about taking a deep breath, but it means something different when we explain to our kids, okay, I want you to trace your hand, and when you're tracing up, I want you to breathe in. And then breathe out on the down. What we're doing is we're pairing that breathing with a tactile experience. And that is also going to help bring our nervous system down. And you'll find, I do this myself often. Dude, game changer, just saying. Thank you. This can also be done by tracing or even just like petting a stuffed animal. When you pet them this way, breathe in, pet them this way, breathe out, things like that. Ripping paper is another good one, especially if that tantrum or we're struggling with, okay. I'll just jump there. Tapping is a huge one. So doing bilateral tapping can be a really calming experience too. As well as somatic therapy, there's a lot of really cool research around just even tapping kind of the outsides of your body. Gently, right? You don't want to like get after it. But that can be a really good containing experience as well. For anger, if we're really struggling with anger, ripping up paper. Because usually we are needing to expel some sort of energy, but we want to do it safely, right? And so ripping up paper, no one's getting hurt. We're making a little bit of a mess. That's going to happen anyways with your kid. And I love this. I use it a lot. Shake it out, right? Hey, I see you're having I see you're really frustrated right now because I said you couldn't get that cereal. Let's shake it out together. And then you do it with them, right? If they're in that space where they're needing some guidance around those skills. Grounding with the 5 senses. What do you hear around you right now? What do you see? You could do the rainbow. So I want you to pick out things you see that are red, things you see that are orange, that are yellow, And then the last one that I love, hi, will you, here. Okay, I'll talk and then we're going to do this. Last one is this hand pressing, and it's a cool co-regulating tool. So coming here and then pressing as hard as you can, right? Because it also creates somewhat of a game, especially for your younger kids, pressing, and then release. That release ends up being really helpful, again, for calming down. Yes, Lisa. Yes. Yes. Moving the wall. It's awesome. That's a good one. Yep. That's a really, really good one.
I'm going to chime in. So based on some of the scenarios in here, what I want to talk about, and we have this here next, is older kiddos and the autonomy of these regulating skills. So I think a lot of the younger kiddos, they're curious, like, oh, I want to push the wall. Let's do it. Older kiddos are like, I don't want to talk to you. I don't want to see you. I have no
Yes.
interest in naming the rainbow colors. And so something that we did as a team, I just want to give this example, is there was a school district in Cleveland, and we were helping the school district, a lot of inner city kiddos, create a needs wheel, is what we called it. The importance of this was that we had a conversation on how everybody's needs are different. These kiddos' needs and the way in which they got them found regulation skills were different than what we had created. So something to think about is the autonomy of your older kids. Get curious and ask, what do they want to do to regulate? And then knowing some things that are really helpful, right? Hand presses, ice packs, all of these great tools that we were just given. How can you pivot their idea to make it maybe not destructive, right? I want to drive the car really fast down the highway. No. We're not going to do that. So how instead could you take these ideas, but giving some autonomy? Autonomy is so important for our older kiddos. They're constantly asking for it, asking when they are in a space of calm to come up with regulation tools. And we don't have to call it that. That sounds scary, right? But just creating more of a conversation around it, I think, is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that is really for those older kids. I find this asking, do you want space? Do you want a distraction, or do you want to talk about it? Three examples. And if they say space, I think this is really important too. If they say space, say, okay, you got it. I can give you space. I'm going to give you space for whatever you deem appropriate, 15 minutes, and then I'm going to come back and check on you. The coming back is really important. They may say for the next 2 hours, I want space. That's okay. I want you to do your best to try and come back, because what we don't want to do is have our kids experience big emotions and then dip, abandon them, not come back. Just wait until everything's cool, calm, and collected and not talk about it again. Because unfortunately, and I received this message, I'm sure a lot of y'all did too growing up, the message that sends is that your big emotions are too scary, they push people away, and they don't need to be seen. And that's not necessarily what we want to do. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. So if we give them space and we come back and they say, get out of here, then you get out of there. Give more space. And the practicalities of this, I realize what I'm saying to do is not always what is going to be feasible in the moment. Absolutely, right? And so even if that space looks like, I got you. Even if that space looks like, okay, I'm going to give you 15 minutes. This is a reminder, we do have to leave for soccer practice in 10. Or in 30 minutes or whatever. So I'm going to give you space. If you still need space in the car, I can commit to not talking to you in the car, right? So setting expectations, trying to give that space. The coming back part is going to be some of that resolution aspect of it that we'll get to in some of those skills later of, hey, let's debrief this situation. But we got to find a space that they come down first in order to debrief. Does that sound a little more realistic than so I just keep coming back every 30 minutes? What's up? Okay. Yep. Nope. Yep. And so I think setting expectations, always leading with, hey, I know you're having some big emotions. That is totally okay. I want to make sure we come back to this because your emotions are important to me, right? And talking through the practicality. I know you still got to go to school today. What do you need in order to get yourself on the bus, right? Or, hey, we still got to catch the bus, so I want you to take one deep breath, do whatever you need to do, grab your lunch, and let's go. But I think talking through it, be transparent, be honest. I'm not even being able to say, man, these are some big emotions right now, and you got to get to school. I'm not really sure how we're going to make this all happen, but we're going to figure it out together. It's totally okay for you to say, I don't know. So,
I'm going to add that to that too, that sometimes it feels silly to label what's going on, this narration, but it actually simplifies a really complex process. So the narration piece is one really easy way to do it. I see that you are having big emotions right now. We need to go. How do you want to come back to this? Just narrating exactly what you are experiencing can make a child, an adult, anyone feels seen. A lot of it is just reading back to them, being their mirror of like, I see, just saying exactly what's happening. And that part right there can feel validating enough that it de-escalates the moment. And maybe you don't have time. It can be very hard when you got to catch the bus, right? But maybe then you circle back later because you've just labeled it.
I'm going to get to questions, just 2 seconds. I know we are at 11 o'clock. I'm good to kind of finish things out, but do it quickly. If anyone does have to dip, but you have questions, feelingsfound.com, you'll find a way to email us. Send an email, and we'll respond. So I just wanted to give people a way to contact. Okay, questions?
We had 3 over here.
Yeah?
Yep.
Totally. Love that. Better idea. Look at you. Oh, yes. Yep. Yeah. Or pin, and they'll send you in our direction. Okay, communication. We want to practice expression together. Use their interests, so things like art. Because again, communication doesn't have to necessarily be verbal. So what does angry look like? That can be done through art, right? It can be done through music. What's a song that you feel like expresses anger? Through sports, the way I like to ask this is like, how would you kick that ball if you were angry? Or how do you engage with that ball angrily? And sometimes kids will really get into this. Similar with video games. We want to move towards daily feelings check-ins, consistently asking, how are you feeling today? What you feeling? How you doing? And this is important for those older kids that are going to say, no, I'm not doing it. We respect it. We respect that autonomy. Absolutely. I hear now it's not a good time for us to talk. I'm going to ask you about it again tomorrow. And it's going to get annoying. They're going to be annoyed with you. And you're going to do it anyways. Because even if they don't take the bait, even if they don't walk through that door you've opened, you're still communicating that the door is open so that when they are ready to walk through it, they can. Using the feelings wheel, things like that to name emotions. I love to just leave it on the table, or like my nieces and nephews just have it kind of chilling in their front room, and it acts as a verbal or a visual reminder to name those emotions. Other one that you may have heard of is having a shared journal. So having a journal that exists just for you and that kiddo, one per kiddo, I would say. Wouldn't mix and match. And the rule is you don't talk about it in person unless they bring it up. They can write whatever they need in there, and you respond however you need to respond. But this can be a really good way to start off communicating about emotions in a way that feels safer for them. Caveat, we don't want to stay there. This is a tool to move forward. If we find that now we are using it as a crutch to only communicate through writing, and we have the ability to be verbal, we want to really push towards that verbal, right? Because it doesn't quite make sense then when they're out in the world, like writing a letter to their boss. That's not cool. And then leaving space, again, for conversation. Maybe that's drives, where you have the music on low. And again, this is about opening the door. They might not walk through it. That's okay. That's where we got to manage our own emotions and not pry. But open the door, let them walk through it. And then if you're just starting this emotional journey and trying to talk about it and your kids are older, like 10 up, 9 up even, talk about it. Say, hey, I just went to this presentation today, and I realized we don't talk about emotions a lot. And it's something that I'm realizing is really important. So I'm going to start trying to talk about emotions more. This is probably going to be really uncomfortable. It's going to be uncomfortable for me. It's going to be uncomfortable for you. But we're going to try and do it together. Be really transparent about it. Got anything?
No, I think that was perfect. And to remember, like as well, when you're teaching your little ones to say how many times when you have a 3-year-old, say thank you, say thank you, say thank you, say it all the time. And then one day they say it and you're like, oh my God, we've done it, right? This is similar. This is going to feel very much like you're just falling on deaf ears. So continue to focus on just picking one thing, one little thing, and stay consistent, because I do think we tend to come home from these presentations and be like, let's do all of it. Let's do a shared journal. Let's talk about emotions. Let's have feelings wheels. And that's really overwhelming for adults and kids. So just pick one thing and be consistent. Then maybe in a little bit of time, if you're noticing some changes or some progress, pick another thing. Take it slow. Take it very slow.
Beautiful. Okay, finally, resolution. This is after we've maybe communicated, after we're regulated again, we've calmed down. One thing that can be helpful that Brogan actually named earlier is when you're in this space, having them go through and write out, this is what helps when I'm sad. This is what helps when I'm angry. Do this when they aren't feeling those things. Really, really important. Ideally, we've got this on a cute little sheet somewhere in the house or in a journal or whatever. But, even if it's just in your brain, better than nothing. And then explore needs. Some good ways to ask this is, what do you feel like is missing, or what are you hoping for? Because, people ask what I need. I don't know. But I can probably tell you what I'm hoping for in a situation. In an argument with, my partner, I can usually say, I'm hoping for you to hear me, right? So some good ways to ask that. Then moving into problem solving, leave a space for the no wrong answers problem solving. Your kids are going to come up with some wild things. i.e., the problem to me being really dysregulated, I want to drive on the highway really, really fast. Totally. In the no wrong answers space, you don't get to say no quite yet. Doesn't mean that we do it. In this no wrong answer space, we're not committing to anything. We're just getting it out. Well, I could go drive on the highway super fast. Totally. Yep. You could. Absolutely. So doing this together can be really helpful. For those that are in the perspective taking stage, what would insert cool person here do? Someone they look up to. Taylor Swift, I hear, is really popular nowadays. So what do you think Taylor Swift would do in this situation? With, if they're experiencing conflict, either with their parents, with caregivers, or with their peers, asking questions like that. And then debriefing, really important. After the kind of conflict, after we've really come really high with those emotions, we've come down, being able to have the conversation, how did we get here? Can we talk about that a little bit? Is there anything you think could have gone different in that situation? Having it be a really open conversation. The last tool that I love is I noticed, I wonder, I hope. Hey, I noticed at dinner last night, you got really angry when I asked you how your day was. I'm wondering if there was some other things going on there, and that maybe your emotions were coming out in the way that you responded to me. I'm hoping that we can find a different way for you to say that you just don't want to talk about it, or that you can tell me a little bit later about what was going on. Done. That's going to get your kid thinking. That's a beautiful, you use that even in workplace conflicts. That works really well too. This, I noticed, I wonder, I hope. Clock that one away for later. And then last piece of this, we have to return to the task at hand. We got to get to school in 10 minutes, but things just got wild, right? We try and regulate, and then we say, okay, and this is for you and your kid. I know we just had a big blow up, and we got to get to school, so I'm going to need you to commit to 2 minutes of getting ready. Start small. Because usually if we can commit to the 2 minutes of returning to the task, we'll keep going with it, right? We'll keep moving with it. But what we don't want is the big emotion. Then we communicate it, we debrief, and then the whole day is just gone because of it, right? What we're trying to do here is build the resiliency. And I think this is something that we are missing recently when we talk about emotions. We're talking about them, we're leaving space for them, and I love that so much. And we have to still go do our lives. We have to still be productive. We have to still go back into the classroom. We have to still do our chores. So committing in these small increments can be helpful for that. Anything there? Okay. We're going to leave scenarios for questions. Basically, go feel your emotions. I hope this was helpful. Thank you all for staying a little bit longer. We'll be here to answer questions. Thank you. I really appreciate y'all. Yeah. Yes.
Take a picture of this so you can contact either Ray or Brogan. Art Thomas at feelingsfound.com, Brosi at feelingsfound.com. How many of you have just like a bazillion scenarios going on in your head right now where you're trying to identify one or two or this kid or that kid or your spouse or partner or your parent or your whoever, because feelings impact all of our relationships. So like they suggested, start with your own little 2-minute challenge, your own one little step, 1% change, and know that you can keep growing. Maybe you write it down on a sticky note and put it in your bathroom, or you put it somewhere. I always think that when you come to these PIN meetings, going back to your kids at dinner or on the weekend or whatever, as I used to do when my kids were home, and say, you won't believe what I learned today at PIN. And they would start, as the years went by, they would go, was today a PIN day? It's Tuesday. What'd you learn? What are we going to start doing now? But it's really neat to say, hey, this is so interesting, and I'm curious about it. And if you start with curiosity, it starts a conversation that they can engage in, instead of like what you said about, I'm not going to stand up here and preach at you. And that's not how we want to go in our homes either, is preaching at our kids. We want to start the conversation at any age. So if you have questions for